Quick initial impressions video and compare and contrast of the two boots. Here we had the Shadow Elite Mach 4 and then the Pro Tier Takedown. Now we're going to compare the two boots, read out the tech specs, and hopefully inform you what boot is best for you. Starting off with the Elite, we have a micro wrap upper, a brand new upper from the previous generation, and it's designed for directional lockout, limited stretch, and a dynamic response. Now, as is upper, it is thin and it is malleable, but it is very tight. So just know you're getting a very locked in and very tight and responsive speed boot. Then if you haven't noticed, it also has 3D haptic micro texture on the vamp. This is just your grip control element for when the ball is wet, and it does a good job. The Elite also has a brand new last that is designed for speed players for its snug fit and lower toe box to help spring you forward. Onto the Pro, it has a different type of upper, but it's still a textile. It is thicker, but it has similar design elements that limit the stretch of the upper for a dynamic response. As for the last, it is exactly the same as the Elite, designed for speed players, as it is now a bit more long and narrow. Both boots' insoles are very similar. The Elite is a molded UA Ortho insole, and the Pro is a molded EVA insole, but again, underfoot they will both feel very similar, with the Elite feeling a little bit more bouncy. The big difference between these boots, though, will have to be, of course, the outsole. Here on the Elite, you're getting the Mac Drive tuned carbon fiber plate with directional flex in the forefoot, and then a very stiff forged carbon plate in the midfoot that will basically won't bend, and it's designed to make you go quicker. Then the stud layout is designed for acceleration with the front studs here and deceleration with some of the rear studs facing the other direction. The Pro has that same stud layout, but is a plastic outsole, so while still very stiff in the midfoot, not as crazy stiff. And then the forefoot is much more flexible, but is still a decent amount of responsiveness, especially at the Pro Tier Takedown. But again, you get those same stud layout. Now, comparisons for these two boots. The Elite feels kind of like a mixture of two boots, in my opinion. The first generation of Puma Ultra, the thickness of the uppers are very similar, and they're both very thin and both a textile base, as well as the previous generation of F50, especially with that sprint whip texturing being very similar on the Mach 4 with their new 3D haptic texturing. So similar ideas, perhaps a bit more grippy on the Shadow. As for the Pro, with its more thicker textile, it relates a little bit more to the Puma Ultra, the current generation of Puma Ultra. While I will say though that the Elite version is still more premium and it's still a lot softer and it will mold better to your feet. This is still a decent alternative, especially at that takedown price point. And because they're both insane carbon fiber plates, I thought a quick comparison between the Puma Ultra Carbon and the Shadow Elite 4 Mach was in order. They are basically just as stiff. What you're really paying for is the difference in sole plate. They're both super aggressive, but I will say that the Ultra has a little bit more toe lift, but the studs are also a little bit longer. So you do sit up a little bit higher in the Ultra Carbon versus the Shadow 4. And again, it's just kind of a preference. You want to be a little bit higher up on your toes more, or a little bit more flat. Because again, both boots are extremely stiff. Now, which one should you buy between the Pro and Elite? Well, if you want a more extreme boot with some serious lockdown and some crazy stiffness, I would go with Elite. If you want something a little bit more relaxed but still aggressive and just a little bit thicker, then I would go with a Pro. Either way, both boots will perform at a decent level for their price points.